Hvala, Leonard. This was Leonard Kolonic with Rachmaninoff's Prelude in Cis minor, and it introduced us lovely into our morning debate on digitalization in the field of education. But before we start the conference, I would like to invite our director, Tone Jamnik, sorry, our current director, Tone Chessen, to welcome all of you here.
So welcome everybody, our distinguished guests from all around the world and Europe and also Slovenia, and the guests who will today be with us and present us the theme of the day. So I'm really happy that we can continue with this international conference, and I hope that you will enjoy and learn something new from this day. So Marco, the word is yours.
Thank you, Tone. We started the conference yesterday, and Tone Jamnik was one of the guests, so it's not a complete Freudian slip. It is, but it has its grounds. I have to tell you a little bit about the idea of the conference. So we wanted to have this be about stuff that's really strongly ours, that's a part of our identity already. And at the same time, we wanted to do this a little bit for ourselves, to open some new horizons, to open some thoughts, some venues of reflection on stuff that we realize is changing our world, and we have maybe to do some more reflecting on how exactly is it doing that, how prepared are we for this. So the entire topic or theme of this Friday's sessions are questions of digitalization. In the afternoon, later, we're focused more on AI. We're very happy to have a parallel sessions in between where teachers are going to present examples of their best practices. Okay, there are a couple of reflections that we want everyone to hear, and they want to sort of put them together in a reflection that would maybe give us some food for thought even in the months to come. A note on the change in the program, slight change in the program. Brian O'Neill, the keynote speaker, is going to start as it is in the program, but then before the break, we're going to introduce also a representative from the ministry, Dr. Igor Petek, because he has some prior engagements that he needs to attend to afterwards, and we really want to use the opportunity of him being here to ask him a couple of questions. So before the break, we're going to slot in Igor after Brian and ask some questions to Igor, and after the break, we're going to have two other presentations, and a roundtable with Brian and the other two presenters. So before I give the floor to Brian, a couple of words about him. He's a emeritus professor from the Technological University in Dublin in Ireland, a researcher on digital technologies, online safety, and digital policies related to children and the digital environment. He's in the policy lead for Better Internet for Kids program, developed by the European Schoolnet for the European Commission. He's also a member of the Council of Europe's Digital Citizenship Education Expert Group. He has previously undertaken research for the OECD on transparency reporting by leading global platforms related to child sexual abuse and exploitation. He presented to the European Parliament's Culture and Education Committee in 2023 on the influence of social media on children and young people. He has also been a member of the EU Kids Online Network for over 15 years and contributes to its ongoing research on children's experiences of risks and safety online. We're very happy to have him with us. And Brian, I give you the floor now.
Good morning, everybody, and it is a real privilege to be here. Director Shazin, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Thank you very much for the invitation to be here for a really momentous occasion, the 30th anniversary of St. Stanislav's Institution, and it has been wonderful for me to learn more of its history and achievements and very distinctive position within Slovenian education. Thank you, Marco, for the introduction, and also thank you for the beautiful musical introduction in the presence of extraordinary talent in this institution, and I've come to enjoy it from yesterday and today, and it's wonderful to see. So I have I've been given generous time this morning, but I must not abuse it because we have many things to talk about and quite a packed program in relation to the very significant issues facing educators and everybody involved in the wider stakeholder community supporting education of young people in today's digital environment. As Mark has introduced from my background, there's a range of different aspects that I'll be touching on for this morning. I will try to give equal time to each, but to also give the floor to Igor, because happily we already have some coincidence in terms of some of the initiatives that we're developing in this area. And I'll be touching on the policy aspects, and against the background here of the many member states that make up the European community. I speak to some extent from a wider European perspective, and I contribute to a number of European initiatives in the area of digital policy with a particular focus on children and young people. In that context that I'll be addressing some of these issues. And I'll also be speaking as from the point of view of research, because that's one of the areas in which developing greater insights into the experiences of young people is so important to guide policy, to ensure that we understand the future perspectives from children's viewpoints and how they envisage this rapidly changing and evolving world. And thirdly, of course, focusing in on the pedagogical dimensions, the foundation for preparing young people to build the skills, the competences, and the capacities to be able to prosper in a full digital environment, which is their future and something to which we're all dedicated. All of this follows on my own experience, and reflecting on my career, I'm an emeritus professor now from my university, so I'm not teaching anymore, but it has allowed me to continue on in research in other areas. But through my career, I often describe myself as a media educator. I started off as a high school teacher, indeed in language, literature, communications, but moving into the area of media studies and television, and that will feature in some of the work that I talk about. Moving into a university environment, my whole area was in the field of media and communications, and looking at the opportunities for young people by providing them with the skills to use media effectively, and to be able to build their ability to use social communication for good and for better outcomes for young people. And thirdly, of course, in the whole area of policy. And as mentioned from the European Commission and the Council of Europe, 2 initiatives that I will speak about in relation to that. Sometimes my particular focus is around online safety, but that is, if you like, one of the particular challenges, but it informs a wider vision. And that's the first part that I wanted to address this morning in relation to what is the vision from a policy perspective, and what do European policymakers envisage for the future of young people? How are they preparing, and how are they looking to support? Do we feel that this contributes well to educational goals? Does it assist us as educators and educational community to be able to prepare and support young people? So it's in this context that I'll begin and look at, first of all, the general outlook in terms of children and the digital environment. And I'm just illustrating here UNICEF's landmark State of the World's Children, which is an annual report which UNICEF brings out each year, particularly against the background of a particular theme. In fact, the current theme deals with displacement and migration. They previously focused on climate change and so on. So this goes back a couple of years and focuses on the digital environment. And it was a recognition by UNICEF that children are in the forefront of a digital revolution in a way that perhaps many others are not. and the experience of children is such that while everywhere children across the world are different, for most children technology is not something new. It's an integral part of their world to the extent that for others this may not be the case. And from the earliest age they learn to be comfortable with digital tools and devices, adept at learning new strategies, techniques and skills, early adopters always of emerging technologies. And it's provided them with instant access to stimulation, communication, knowledge and entertainment, fostering their curiosity and their sense of discovery on a vast scale. The scale of this immersion, different worlds, the sheer volume of information online can be overwhelming and can present, of course, huge challenges. And for today, and as a media literacy educator, discerning truth from fiction and credibility and credible sources from misinformation is such a significant challenge to the extent it provides some existential challenges to figuring out who we are in this world. And taking that from the child or the young person's point of view is one of the most urgent challenges that educators we try to face. So this was the context in which UNICEF highlighted, for the international community, and which has contributed also to the work in relation to UN Sustainable Development Goals and envisaging a future for children, which are its greatest resource, as I quote here, and its hope for the future. Young people are brimming with ideas, energy and potential for positive change. However, far too often and too many young people are left behind, excluded from education, work opportunities and participation in decision making. And it was in that context that they wished to highlight this as one of the major challenges of the contemporary age. Moving to the European perspective, and much of what I say will be focused in relation to Europe and the context in how the European Union and other institutions present and position young people. So in 2021, President Ursula von der Leyen declared the following year the European Year of Youth. And that was the EU's particular statement to acknowledge not only how much young people had to sacrifice over the difficult period of the preceding pandemic, and let us remember that this is, if you like, the milestone which all young people today will never forget, and the importance of young people's voices in the collective project of Europe into the future. And she recognized and dedicated the range of initiatives to empower young people and to enlist their support in outlining a vision of their own future. And in that context, there were a number of major initiatives. This was the so-called digital decade, and the digital decade, which, if you like, informs everything that we're currently involved in education through to 2030. And it is a decade of extraordinary change and one in which we're facing the twin challenges of global climate change, managing the green transition and digitalization, and they work seamlessly together. And within this, young people's voices and young people's support will be absolutely crucial. The European Declaration on Digital Rights and Principles followed shortly after in 2022 and was uniquely one of the first high-level declarations signed by all European institutions articulating a vision to set out a global standard of rights and freedoms within the digital environment, and organized around the key themes of putting people and their rights at the center of digital transformation, making it truly human-centered, building around solidarity and inclusion, freedom of choice, and participation in a digital public space that was characterized by safety, security, empowerment, and sustainability. These, of course, are laudable goals, and we will always look to policymakers to ensure that they follow through on these kinds of principles. But specifically within the declaration, the part I just highlight is that within this it was recognized that children throughout Europe have the right to education, training, lifelong learning, and should be able to acquire all the basic and advanced digital skills, and committed to supporting educational policies in which these skills would prepare young people to take an active part in the future of Europe. Children should be protected and empowered online and through European policies that a positive, age-appropriate and safe digital environment for young people should be the primary priority. And as we will see, a number of actions followed through in relation to this. The one that I'm particularly associated with and that I contribute to as the policy lead is the so-called Better Internet for Kids strategy. We refer to it as BIC+, and tomorrow, May the 11th, is the second anniversary, and we're releasing a report. And my good friend and colleague in the Ministry of Digital Transformation contributed the Slovenian report, and this will show the progress that has been made across European member states in realizing this vision. And it is a vision in which there are three key pillars, but that the safe digital space and that young people should be assured that they can participate in a digital environment that supports them, that provides high levels of security and safety, and is one in which they can feel that there is an absence of many of the wrongs and the threats that are all too often associated with this. The second pillar is around digital empowerment, and this is a key focus, of course, for education, so that through this process, young people should be able to acquire the necessary skills and competences to make sound choices, to express themselves positively and confidently. And the third area, and an important one of new development, is around active participation, respecting children's rights. And this commitment and this promise to give children and young people a greater voice will be hugely important. And by the way, what I often use, I keep referring to children in this context, and I always use it in the context of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, which defines anyone under the age of 18 as a child. And they merit special protections and considerations in respect of being a young person, enjoying the full rights of all citizens, but which have special status in that context. One thing to just note in relation to the Better Internet for Kids strategy is that it reaffirms a long-standing European commitment. And our challenges are not actually hugely new. And interesting to say, and I just move here to look at some of the legal measures that have been in place recently. But for over 20 years, the European Union has presented and promoted a policy around promoting the rightful place of children in the information environment. And I quote from a 1996 European Commission policy of the time, that as well as being protected, it stated, children and young people must be given their rightful place within the information society. And I just remind you that Mark Zuckerberg was probably in high school at the time. And the challenges were not so well known, but it is something that has been central to the European vision. And this led to the development of a so-called Safer Internet program. One could argue that one of their failings was that much was left to the technology sector to support these provisions, and it was largely characterized by the industry and the digital environment, if you like, regulating itself. All of that has changed, and as I just showcase here, the Digital Services Act is among one of many different legal measures which now put in place rules within the European space for digital services, for the purpose of guaranteeing high levels of safety, security and privacy in the digital environment. We are at the early stages of a new phase, and I leave it to the discussion in terms of how this is progressing. But as I mentioned, in relation to the Better Internet for Kids program, is an ongoing monitoring exercise of how well we have advanced in achieving these goals and elaborating on this particular vision. And within that context, there'll be much more to talk about in terms of we set the vision, we place young people at the center of it, but how much we've in fact achieved in terms of guaranteeing and supporting that. Much is currently at play, and there's much to debate in that context. But underpinning it, and it's another point of emphasis that I'd like to just highlight for today, is from the European community's perspective, an important emphasis on the rights of the child. And the Better Internet for Kids strategy is often presented as the digital version of the EU's strategy on the rights of the child. It's that version, it's that translation that much as there is a European social guarantee, there are various different measures around committing to what we look to provide for young people's futures, that in the digital environment, this also has its equivalent. And it is a recognition that young people have legitimate rights to participate, and it is not about either restriction or inclusion, but ensuring that there is a quality of support for them when it comes to their access and use of digital services. And this finds strong echoes in terms of international global developments. In particular, I mentioned the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, which recently has had a major statement around the translation of that within the digital environment. What does that mean to actually translate those rights? And it is the basis of many new initiatives which focus on a need to do better in many cases about creating appropriate guidelines, rules, and regulations in terms of what is in the best interests of the child and supports young people to achieve their future. So that is a particular part of it, and it's something that is currently in development at the UN level in the form of a global digital compact, and that in 2024 we realize that much left to the self-regulatory field is no longer sufficient, and it requires greater international resolution. So that's in terms of, if you like, reinforcing and emphasizing the human rights dimension of this. I should say that the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child is the most ratified human rights treaty in the world, and is ratified by all countries, with one exception, which is, I'm afraid, the United States. And it is an extraordinary position to acknowledge, but it is one in which it has gathered major force, and something that will be quite, I think, influential in the coming years. Just, I also wanted to draw on some of our discussions from yesterday in terms of articulating and linking to Catholic perspectives and education in the Catholic tradition towards digitalization, digital pedagogy, and so on. And Catholic social teaching finds has also lent strong support to protecting children online as a matter of fundamental rights. And it links closely to this. Of course, the origins of the Catholic perspective towards social communication really go back to the Second Vatican Council. And I mention this because it was a formative part of my own professional career within the development of media education and media literacy, which had huge backing from an early stage, from the early 1970s, when there were many educational initiatives that built on the potential and the power of contemporary media communication. Much was focused around television and its ability to lay the foundation for an engaged and relevant education for the 20th century. This hasn't translated to the same extent in the area of digital pedagogy, but there are a number of important initiatives which have taken place. And in particular, I'll just highlight the Child Dignity in the Digital World Congress, which was hosted by Pope Francis in 2017, and was a major milestone in bringing international governments and international community together to address the most egregious wrongs in the digital environment. And much of that was focused in the area of the unfettered and unregulated nature of abuses online. And from that, there was a Declaration of Rome and the establishment of the Child Dignity Alliance, which has continued to be significant in terms of promoting and progressing this. But there are many other dimensions around this, and again, perhaps for later discussion, the extent to which drawing on the Second Vatican Council, and in particular that very proactive and positive embracing of digital technologies in alliance with the Global Compact on Education, the initiative launched by Pope Francis to foster a renewed commitment to the education of children and youth, not only in the classroom, but in the wider family and community. And there's much that we can draw on for that in terms of elaborating and articulating a vision for the future of digital pedagogy. Last in this policy discussion, I'll move on to other areas, is in relation to, of course, how all of these visions converge around the digital application and implementation of digitalization within the classroom, within the school settings. The Digital Education Action Plan is the European Commission's roadmap and plan for this, and I will give the floor to Igor further to take up in relation to the setting out of Slovenia's ambitious plans in this regard. And it's been a very important part of the resetting post-pandemic of how we imagine and envisage digitalization to take shape within our education systems. And I know that these are familiar goals in Slovenia, which has been very proactive in prioritizing this particular work and addressing some of the key themes within this. Okay, I will move from this and move to just a number and a few select highlights in the area of research, and then some examples from the field of digital pedagogy, which I hope will give some practical illustration of the issues involved. And let me say a little bit about the research perspective, because this is also something that I've been actively involved in. So EU Kids Online is one of the unique research contributions. Again, it has a European origin. It was funded under the Safer Internet Programme, and it was the first pan-European national or international exercise to present accounts of young people's own experiences. Age 9 to 16 was the particular framework for that. Slovenia was a founding member, and I have a good colleague in the University of Ljubljana who still contributes to this work. And in fact, there will be a meeting of the network here in Ljubljana in September. They have one of the occasional meetings, and it comes on the margins of a major communications conference. So it's in this context that the EU Kids Online model has been quite influential. It has informed how we understand the young people's perspective and focus on the different dimensions, which you can see portrayed in the diagram here. It has the young person at the center, and we are survey-based. We undertake both qualitative and quantitative research with the young person, understanding what they bring to their experiences, as well as what they encounter in their use of digital technologies. But you'll see beyond that, and this refers back to the context of the family and the community, and indeed the wider cultural context in which all of our experiences take shape. And that's the purpose of, you can see the concentric boxes there that we focus on different dimensions. And this has resulted in a series of reports and studies which have guided the Better Internet for Kids program. They have contributed, and it has highlighted both the gaps and the problems that young people encounter, as well as some of the potential challenges. I'm really just going to select a few because of time, and I'm just going to pull out a few quick examples. And these, in fact, come from colleagues in the UK because they're the most recent, and it includes some recent findings published just last month in relation to access. So it's that part of the middle in relation to access. Here we just see some quick graphs, and it's really just to try and portray what we understand in terms of how young people experience the digital world. And here what you can see is going online by age is something that is pervasive and is something almost of an immersive experience for children of all ages. Some of these figures may in fact, and they caused some controversy, but they are very robust, and they're undertaken by Ofcom, which is the national regulator, and is a detailed analysis. But from age 3, which is covered by the tracking survey, 84% of children have access to or are experiencing some participation in the digital environment. And as you can see, and this is for one European country's population, but similar in many other countries in terms of how it becomes a universal experience. The second graph on the lower part shows the degree of access by mobile devices, and a very sensitive and contentious issue in many cases. And this one caused headlines in the UK a number of weeks ago, whereby it was seen, as you can see, that 26 and 27% of children under 7, not necessarily with their own personal devices, but were using mobile devices and smartphones to access online entertainment and so on. There are a number of different ways in which these can be interpreted, but they do show a picture of reality of, as I say, that digital native experience. There are a couple of graphs which really here begin to show some of the same things. But just to take this particular issue, because I know I was in London earlier in the week, and where there was a very lively debate on the subject. But the first diagram, which you can see here, which is mobile phone ownership, the picture is very simple. You can see it from the age of 8 upwards, this very steep, sharp incline, reaching to the period of age 12 or so, where there is almost 100% ownership of a personal mobile device. So when we talk about participation in the digital environment, what do we mean, and what are the gateways and the access points? And that is what current figures from the UK are showing. In relation to, I'm not sure how I get the pointer on this. The red one. Okay, so this one here. Here, if you like, is some of the same figures. Again, it's age on the bottom, and you can see use of mobile phone or tablet. And tablets, of course, are the most tactile, easily accessible for younger children. But look at what happens at this period here. From age 8 or 9 or 10, this sharp switch over. And it's a particular pressure point that parents and educators are facing in many different cases. And other devices, and this is any other device other than a use of any device other than a computer or laptop to go online at a much lower level. So this is in terms of, if you like, immediately what smartphone access is beginning to show in terms of those experiences. This may be a little harder to see, but you can see just a general pattern here in relation to activities. And on the top are younger children, and I'm taking that age group of 8 to 11, and then 12 to 15 below hand. And because it has consistently been the top most prominent activity, watching video and our engagement through mobile devices has largely been video driven. and has for many years been the most rated activity, and the reason for which there is now increased focus on video sharing platforms, the algorithms that drive video sharing, and the services which contribute. What are the ways you have the device, but how is video in fact being presented? And it is the same for both younger and older age groups. And in fact, the only difference between the two age groups here, the top ones are the same because we all communicate through digital devices and using video. And video is the means, I suppose, of communication at this stage. But the difference here is, if you like, playing games and gaming and entertainment for younger children is substituted by social media use. And social media platforms clearly, of course, from the age of 12 onwards. And that again is a pronounced and ongoing feature of, I suppose, our experiences. All of this is to say that there is a shaping of the developmental process, and indeed this is one of the themes of the presentation which I gave to Commissay last year, and in relation to a research report for the European Parliament's Culture and Education Committee. The developmental stages and processes are now mirrored by a range of digital activities and ways of accessing the digital environment that poses major questions, and that includes both opportunities and challenges that educators and parents together face. And this is, if you like, one sort of stepping gradation here, and I'm focusing really on the ages, from 8 to 11, 12 to 15, 16 to 17 as particular age stages of particular interest. They're also the ones of particular interest to many of the private digital services providers, because this is how services are targeted and developed. And the two things, just to perhaps highlight here, are some of the kinds of typical parenting modes that often accompany these. It's not necessarily, if you like, they're required or mandated, but the typical modes, whoops, I beg pardon, which are associated with this, which include, using, supervision tools of different kinds, and whether this is monitoring monitoring behind the scenes, or engaging in development of, a dialogue around young people's experiences. The other part here is in relation to the developmental tasks. And perhaps just to highlight that this is not to assume that young people have bad experiences or poor experiences, but it is tailored according to the stage of development and their growing autonomy and their growing sense of independence. And as educators and as parents, one of our challenges is in fact to be able to identify and recognize where young people are and how they can be best supported in the terms of the development of their own sets of values and their own ability to be able to manage an environment that is not easy to regulate or, if you like, to control. I won't delay too long on some of these, but the same research highlights some of the parental concerns that are expressed by parents in relation to these same issues. And they include, you may be familiar with, the potential of exposure to inappropriate content or developmentally not appropriate content. And that's why the age and age of use and catering for and being able to provide the appropriate experience at the right stage becomes such a big issue. It will be perhaps no surprise that one of the hottest topics in current digital policy is one of age verification, and the techniques and the technologies that could or should be employed to provide particular gates around which that control is managed. Other aspects in terms of experiencing harm, again through exposure to contact or content that is simply not suitable for the age. Some of this I'd be happy to discuss further, but if you like, just to point out some of the sources around this. Cyberbullying is, in fact, through the research, one of the most reported topics by young people. Where parents often have concerns about exposure to harmful content, it's actually aggression and cyberbullying and the risks and the detrimental impact on young people, which is reported most. There is a European study which was conducted over the course of the pandemic, and again, Slovenia was a partner within this, which includes these findings. And Slovenia, in fact, reported lower levels, but in general, the trend was that over the course of COVID, when, of course, young people relied upon digital connection, that these experiences of being harassed or bullied or within a group environment not being respected became a matter of serious concern. And it's something that, again, policymakers are keenly focused on. The second area, just to highlight again very briefly, because I know it may be one of our topics of discussion, is around overuse, excessive use, and the term internet addiction, which is sometimes used. Internet addiction is not officially recognized as a particular syndrome. Gaming disorder is, but not internet addiction, and it covers a number of different features around this. And the EU Kids Online has developed a particular scale to manage that, but about 1 in 10 express one of the attributes around these feelings of a lack of control and inability to manage their digital experience. And then something that we hear so much about is in relation to mental health concerns and the perception that there is a mental health crisis, which has been widely studied and attributed in many respects to digital devices. I probably have to mention that one of the very popular books at the moment is a US researcher, Jonathan Haidt, who has characterized the smartphone generation as one undergoing a particular malaise. And much of it is focused around tracing the correlation between a mental health crisis and the patterns of usage and the patterns and trends of consumption through digital technologies. Okay, I want to move swiftly to just a few brief examples because I'm conscious of my time, and I do want to give the floor to the next speaker. And it's really just to showcase from a different perspective of what is the response from education and educators. I mentioned last evening in relation to discussions around the purpose of education. I'll just mention a little bit of the work of the Council of Europe, because I know it will feature next in terms of some of Slovenia's national plans around digital education. And the Council of Europe, which of course is a member organization founded after the Second World War, not to be confused with the EU institutions, but is a member organization dedicated to the promotion of democracy, human rights and the rule of law. But has a particular status as a policy-making body within the field of education. And for the whole diversity of its 46 member states, it has characterized the education or the purpose of education as we rethink what the vision for the future is around 4 goals, which it says are absolutely interdependent. They're not separate, and this is not to, and we fail if we focus on any one. But it is about preparing for a future life of work. It is about preparation for life as active citizens, for personal development. And of course, in the Catholic tradition, this means something quite specific in relation to students and young people's own personal development and faith formation, and development of a broad and advanced knowledge base. And it's in that particular context that I've worked with colleagues in the Council of Europe around the notion of digital citizenship education. It's contributing to that part or that focus within education to develop competences to live capably and to prosper in future digital societies. The model here is a curriculum framework, and it's a resource. I won't go into the detail. It's called the butterfly model. But what it does do is highlight that there are values, attitudes, skills, knowledge, and critical understanding in any education intervention that we care to make. And that our role as educators is to foster the values and the attitudes that support positive digital citizenship. And that's the definition which our expert group developed in the context of its work. And briefly, and I will conclude on this, some very, very brief examples in terms of work that has been developed in this context. One is in relation to work that I'm familiar with from the Irish context, which is a curriculum resource for early second level students, and it was developed in the context of this framework, how to build digital citizenship for the future. And it is a multimedia resource around all of these issues about being online, their well-being online, and their rights online. And it brings together various different resources, including opportunities for young people to make their own media. From that point of view, if you like, it demonstrates good pedagogical practice and has a full range of resources to support it. And it's something that I think is widely available, and indeed Safer Internet Centres across Europe are doing more of that. The next example, and it's really just to mention this very quickly, is from my own university, and in fact it's a university model which works in partnership with local schools, and it's been running for nearly 10 years now at this stage, and is about developing a newspaper online for young people, for children in primary school. And so it's a group of first-year university students, aged 19, 20 perhaps, and they're working as trainee journalists, and they're creating a newspaper resource to be read and to be consumed by young people. It's been a fantastic experiment, because it draws on all of the skills of professional journalism, but it's a very real educational experience for the young participants. And it's something that has now been rolled out nationally with the support of the Ministry of Education, and I think is a model, particularly where there are multiple levels of education that can collaborate together. And I have some resources available here, and of course it's all available online, which gives some of the children's feedback in relation to consuming this, as well as the teachers' feedback, and what has come from this. And just recently I had the good fortune to meet with the editor of what seemed to be a very equivalent project here in Slovenia, Kazoris, you will pronounce it for me separately, but it was in the context of media literacy initiatives we were talking about this. And this is professionally produced for young people, and is an example around development of positive content in the context of using digital technologies, and ones which will very much develop those kinds of competences. Third one, and this is to bring us to a close, is from one of my students. This is Estelle. Estelle Clements is her name, and she's a very talented teacher from Canada. And she's now working in the UK, but she did her PhD with us in our university. And her project is actually archived here on digitalcivics.org. And this is a project which deals with the creative dimension of engaging with digital technologies. And in fact, it's actually quite an older project now, but she has developed a whole pedagogical model around this, and it's well documented and published on her website. And she has a number of really excellent academic publications from this. The particular project, and I'm just going to leave it really with you as a teaser, was an experience with the novel. And she was an English teacher. It's literature. And built on the back of a festival that we have in Dublin called One City, One Book. And it celebrates books that have some connection with the city of Dublin. Oscar Wilde, of course, was born and lived in Dublin for a good portion of his life. And The Picture of Dorian Gray is quite a popular novel. It's actually on our curriculum at second level. And we were discussing yesterday in relation to analogies for, if you like, the virtual environment, and even the phenomenon of developing a digital twin through artificial intelligence. Well, in the 1890s, Oscar Wilde wrote a story precisely around this particular concept, and that was this Picture of Dorian Gray. But Estelle's project, in fact, was about building a learning experience, a workshop, which lasted for a period of a month in recreating scenes and adding new kinds of interpretations of the book through online platforms and devices. And that's what it became. A group of young people studying in their second or third year in secondary school, working around role play, designing performances, having workshops in relation to this, and inviting members of the public to become involved in the literary experimentation. And it was that. It was an experiment. But it was a creative engagement with an actual topic to use the available digital resources. And it became really quite a fascinating experience in terms of positive digital pedagogy. And she particularly focused on the development of digital ethics as a result of this. And I think you can probably guess the kinds of ideas that come from that. Okay, to conclude, and apologies if I've taken up too much time, but some takeaways in relation to the digital pedagogy examples that I've just shown. This type of placing young people at the heart of the digital process, for me, brings together and requires us to look at real and digital, virtual and physical, very much as one. The separations are artificial, particularly from young people's perspective, and they need to be brought together. The examples that I've spoken of, and it really speaks to my own experience as a teacher and as an academic, focus on the creative. There are aspects of the creative process of education which are never replaced by digital technology because they're tools, and it's how you use them and its purpose for creating, communicating, and exploring. There are practical lessons that come from this. But it is also something that, if you like, is an experience that works right across the school curriculum and lots of different kinds of subject areas. And these are, again, the beginnings of what I hope will be a positive digital pedagogy that we can take away. My last, just by way of concluding observations, really is in terms of both the debates that are present here at this conference and indeed the discussions focusing on the challenges and the way forward, is for me to look to those opportunities within the policy environment which express a positive vision for young people in digital spaces and digital worlds. And that's crucially important. They are there, they require support, and they require to be prioritized. In the research environment, I think it is really important to focus on the developmental aspects because children are not all the same and of different ages. There are many different kinds of needs. Within the pedagogical environment, looking towards the welfare and the dignity of the young person, I think you will see as a consistent theme throughout many of these policy engagements. And what we're looking to commit to is ensure that the welfare, well-being, and the dignity of the young person is respected at all times. And finally, in that relation to digital citizenship, allied with ecological citizenship, which I know is so important to St. Stanislaus, is a great way to motivate and inspire. My thought, and indeed, coming from yesterday's very, very stimulating discussion, is really to echo the words of Pope Francis recently when he said that now is not a time to hunker down. It is a time to engage with the challenges of the age and in relation to the initiatives through the Global Compact on Education. It is an invitation to engage, to take forward, and to build on these initial positive visions. Thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to discussing further.
Thank you very much, Brian. We're going to talk to you more about this in the later session, but now, as stated, we're going to shift a little bit and invite Dr. Igor Petek to present a little bit about the visions and the plans of the ministry. Igor is the head of the Service for the Digitalization of Education, alongside being associate professor at the University of Maribor, and he is, I think, head of one of the most progressive departments at our ministry. So we're really happy to have you here, and I now give
the floor. Hello, everyone. I will have my iPad here, just not to show you my back. So I'm very glad to be here, and thank you, Brian, for this really good presentation, because it's very well in line with my presentation. So as you can see, we have the logo Digitrajno izobraževanje. It means digital, it's two words, and trajno means sustainable or long term. So what we want to do is that digital or digital education is not just one thing, but what we want to do is that we somehow empower our students and teachers to live in this digital world. So just a bit of history of digital education. This is not like very new. We have a very long history since we already had first classrooms for computer science in 70s. And we also had very strong industry in this field in this until 90s, but then we separated from the Yugoslavia and then declined in this industry. What we have is also dedicated ICT coordinator in primary schools. It's called ROIT, and it's like there for already 25 years. So we already acknowledge that digital is coming to education a long time ago, but still we work in like waves. So first wave was in the around year 2000. The second was around 2010, because at that time, in 2010, we introduced interactive textbooks, which were at that time very, very advanced, because it didn't go to the Flash, which was at that time the standard, but went to HTML5, which is now standard, and it was also very, very interactive. You can still see them on the, if you search for Slovenian e-textbooks, and you will find those kind of textbooks. And now we, in the last 3 years, we have a new approach. Since we 3 years ago established a new digital education service, we are not secret service on the ministry, but digital education service. Since we are horizontal, we are not like directorate or sector, but we work with all of the sectors and directorates on the ministry, because we are, our goal is not digital in the content, but digital in the horizontal or always or all directions. Our service now has like, we are like 15 at the moment, and we are still growing. And surprisingly, the funds are not the problem at the moment. So this is like always the funds are the problem. We prepare something and the funds are the problem, but here it's not. Maybe this is very important, our vision. As you can read, it's not, again, the digital as the primary goal, but to prepare individuals for the high quality life in the current world or in the future. Now, to see the presentation from Brian, where we saw that we have a lots of mobile phone usage and in the early ages, and we can observe in public now that we have like backlash of on the digital. The people saying we don't need more screens and so on, but the problems are not in education or in schools, because the mission of the education is to prepare children for the future, and the future will be digital. What we're doing now is that parents and also general public in general say there is too much digital, but my argument is that there is too much unstructured digital. So schools give structured way of use digital in the schools, also mobile phones. I don't say that we just give phones to the students or students can have it on the tables, but I think that we have to teach them how to use these digital tools on general in their life for their work and also personal, of course. But to ban, because now it's also, you know, we have to ban this is bad, but then we are not pursuing our mission as education system. So in our digital education plan, which is our like Bible, what we do in next years, we have 6 pillars, but the 6th is because the plan was prepared in the COVID situation, and we said we have to also have emergency situation protocols to somehow to be responsive in this case. But other 5 are very important. I will go through each of them in the next slide. So national coordination is the first one. Our service is being this coordination. We also have one center which is financed by Resilience and Recovery Funds, which we act as a coordination between research, education in schools, and also industry. And we have like workshops with different stakeholders to somehow see in which direction should we go with policy. Because policy cannot be made only at our ministry, because we can write the policy, but if we are not in sync with teachers and schools and also other stakeholders, then it will be only written on some policy and nobody will follow it, except we but just hit it with the stick, you know. So this coordination is very, very important. And what we see is that we have already so much knowledge and tools and everything already there, but we just have to bring them together and to somehow make different stakeholders hear each other or hear them, so we can see what we have already in this area. The next is didactics. This is like very the pillar that is somehow we are talking about didactics, about the pedagogy, but it's very important because the technology is always developing. And here I have maybe the biggest problem and also hope for the digital education. Currently, we always have the situation, we have some technology and we bring it to the classroom and say, okay, how can we use it? Like we have digital or interactive whiteboards and now screens and everything, or now also AI. The problem is that we are always behind, so the technology is in front and we follow. Here I see the change. So we say we have this problem, which technology will solve it for me? Okay, this is the didactics that we want to see, not the other way around. And also the problem here is that the technology is developed by IT people. So I'm also one of those in my other life. But the problem is that maybe 1 month ago I was on one conference which was very technological, and they said, okay, we prepared this material, the students could do this and this and this. The problem is they went to school and they think that they are experts of education or how to teach, you know. This is my biggest problem. It's not always around, or never around, so it's not that experts tell what we need and the technology helps us to do it. So I think that this pillar will have some answers, not all, but some answers. And as you can see, we have different experimental projects which goes in these directions. So they say, we have this project, which digital tool will help me solve it? And they will prepare scenarios, how they did it, and then we will have like dissemination events to show other teachers that this is maybe the right direction. The other are digital didactics, which will have like synthesis of everything that we made in one, I hope, coherent way. And the last two ones are like the response, at least the third one, generative AI in education, because it's here. We cannot say we will ban it again. So we will have a project that will focus only on this, but not in the way that, again, we have AI and let's say, let's make teachers preparation for next hour with AI. This is one of the also possible uses of AI, or just ChatGPT, because generative AI is ChatGPT and all the derivatives. But again, to somehow show the very positive way of this AI, it can be very helpful. But if we know how to use it also with the students. Digital citizenship we heard about already. This is the project that is like all the projects and everything that we talk about in digital education is based on technology and how to use it, and not on the soft skills. And the kids or students are very much, as we heard earlier, very much on online, and we have to teach them also this aspect. And digital citizenship covers very nicely all the aspects. And we now have like a lot of this information also for students. We have actions also in Slovenia about hate speech and cyberbullying, everything. But this project, which will be announced next week as a public call, will again try to connect all the stakeholders in this field, and also connect with Council of Europe, the experts there, and in next 2 years somehow show how can we approach this digital citizenship, not only for students but also for the teachers in this case. Curricular reform, or reforms in general. We are currently have the current state of our digital in our curricular is like we have only advices that we can use digital also in the classroom. Now with this reform, which will end in 25, so next year, is that we will have common goals. So as digital competence is one of the competencies that should be taught in all the subjects, we are introducing this as a common goal. So all the subjects will have one of the learning outcomes connected with also with the digital, and they will in one grade, let's say mathematics, will address something about data, and so all the subjects will address this. So we are like doing the whole school approach. The thing is that we also need some digital strategy of the school to help teachers to accomplish this. The second one is National Program for Education, which is like strategy for next 10 years. What is again nice is that it addresses digital in very comprehensive way and also introduces computer science as a subject in 5th and 6th grade, but not the goal is again not only to teach them programming, but to have the basic knowledge about this technology that they're using, and then again it will complement the digital competencies that will be taught in other subjects. So what we do is like set the foundation in computer science, then all the subjects will have digital competencies, and then in this secondary school, when they are more already at right age, we will have again informatics to have like data science and artificial intelligence. This is the plan, and I hope that in next years we will have it accomplished. Staff education. No, I have to change this. Sorry. Yeah. We have like one big project, Digitrajan Učitel, which is 1 year now in progress. The goal is to strengthen and all the professionals in the school, not only teachers, but also the leadership, because we recognize that this is very important, and the other two topics are sustainable development and financial literacy. The second one, leadership for digital education, this is planned. What we observe is that, again, on one hand, we have teachers, we have like policy, but we always miss the leadership. So not only the principals, but also other people, development teams in the schools that need extra support to have again digital in their schools. So this is not the only way to bring digital in the schools, but what we want to do is like comprehensive on all levels to approach this digital, and because we think that only in this way we will have success. We tried on particular or only one way, but it was not working. Here. The ecosystem. Usually, when we observe the other countries, we said, here are the computers, some content, and the experiment failed. So we have to have ecosystem, but it's, in my opinion, one of the easiest way. Of course, if you have funds, but other way around, just building the ecosystem with everything, connectivity, equipment, tools, everything, it won't work. So we have to have this, but it's not the only one. But again, it's quite easy. We had one project, eTorba, e-school bag, can be translated. It's national platform for digital resources. The plan is, we ended last year. The plan is to make it really national. So we will bring different also publishers to this platform to to have like for students one entry point to all digital resources, to somehow ease the access to good quality content in for education. The next is VR in education. This is again a response to the happening in the technology, but not that in the sense we have this, how can we use it, or where can we use it, but again we will try to approach this in more systematic way, and it's like a combination again of policy and industry and pedagogical or educational institutions. We will buy ICT equipment, and we are also providing application. The first one, Hobby, is like a tool for learning reading. Reading comprehension in Slovenia is in decline, and this is one of the tools that can help children automate reading. This is not for the comprehension, it's for the young kids. So teacher can give students a tablet to read, but it will help them with some visual components to read it more quickly. So because automatization of reading is the first step to reading comprehension. The Plagiator is the second one, which is like tools that help teachers to be less burdened with some checking, because this Plagiator will check if the kids did it by themselves or by someone else. And we have like plans for many more applications, but always in the sense that we want to help teachers in their teaching practice. We are also very active as ministry in Erasmus projects, because what we do is that we have one Erasmus project or international project and one national project which are connected, and we are like connecting part, and because there are nice insights from the international and also very nice insights from the national, because it's not always transferable, and for us these are now the important ones. We are for empathy. This is for VR in the sense that we are not doing only some content, but we are developing empathy with this. DALI for us is digital literacy in the schools. Digital first is like computer science in early ages. IE4T is already closed. It was the project that was right on time, because when we were doing this or in progress, ChatGPT was announced, so it was very good, and some very nice materials were made, a handbook and also one MOOC, which was very popular for the teachers. Valiant is, it was in COVID, mainly because virtual meetings were then very popular, and this is like a very, not very, I would say, popular but very important team. Challenger is for vet schools, but it's a new ways of approaching how to teach vet subjects. Other activities, we are in very active in Code Week, Safe CISO, Safer Internet Center, it's one of ours also. Other ministries financing, but we are more in the advisory boards. Hate speech and cyberbullying is also in our domain. Media literacy, it's funny because we don't have like one person that is responsible for media literacy in general, not on our ministry, not on the Ministry of Culture, which is more as media in general, but now we are saying that this is already ours. We're taking over. Maybe some challenges. Data in education. This is like, when we are talking about AI in education, data is like foundation. Without data, there is no AI. And for us, getting data and ensuring it's like that it's also ethically approved, and also how we get it, it's very important. And data privacy and security, but for ministry, it's very important also because when we want to do something with data of our students, we have to be written in law. So everything that we do is very cleaned out. So it's not like we are a company that will just take some data, but we have to be sure for each data or data component why it's we are getting it. The second one is AI literacy, which is we have to prepare students for digital future, and this is like one of the most probable futures. We are not sure which one is, but this is probably one of them. And again, we can hear some also in OECD, for example, that say just give them ChatGPT in first class or first grade, and they will use it, and they will use it in the proper way. But the problem is that you have to have foundation of knowledge to see and to somehow be prepared, and also critically observe what it gives you as a result. And also what we want, especially in AI, to see evidence that it really works in the classroom. We won't allow to get this in the system, in the sense that we don't have like some evidence that is backing up this decision. We are also informing the public. We have like one Slovenian educational network, which is like an info portal for our teachers. We are only using LinkedIn as a communication. You can see us on this link. And what we do is lately is we have like usually three pillars. So we are ministry, schools, or teachers and students. Now we are seeing that we need parents also, especially in digital. And now we are trying to reach them, because usually we lost them in the, I don't know, for the kids when they are getting in grade 4 or 5, they usually don't listen us to anymore. So we are now preparing podcasts about digital with experts, but its goal is not to, because we usually have like 2 guests that talk about some topic that is important. And last podcast was about digital citizenship, in the sense that it talks about European election next month and so on. So that we have to be also, we have to talk also with our kids or students about this, and it's very important. And this is the last one. Thank you.
Thank you, Igor. We do want to go to a coffee break in a couple of minutes, but we can't let you off without a question or two. Maybe a question for me, knowing the ministry, it seems that you're working rather fast. Knowing how technology develops, some might say even too slow. How satisfied are you with the speed and with the work of the service that you're doing?
I'm now 3 years at the ministry. Why I'm here is because I was very critical about how ministry deals with digital in general, as professor at the ministry, at the university. And now, after 3 years, I can understand why it's so slow. You have to be very inventive to overcome all the obstacles that are present in the. It's not the ministry, but the legal framework that is slowing down everything, and it's really hard. For instance, we have money or funds to buy equipment for schools, primary schools in Slovenia. The problem is that we as ministry cannot buy this equipment for them because the local authorities like municipalities are owners of the schools. So we as a ministry give equipment to municipality, not the school, in the sense of the law. So now we have to find way to somehow give the equipment to the schools, and it takes time. For instance, this is like our problem now for 2 months that we realized that it's not like this. We can give it to the secondary schools. This is no problem because we are the founders and owners. But for the primary schools, it's like different work.
Is it still a challenge, or is it growing already into a frustration?
For us, it's always the challenge. Otherwise, you can just quit because it's not that. It's challenging, and what we realized is that we need a lot of lawyers to overcome these obstacles. And I think that we are getting better and better. You know, also new people that come to our service need like 1 year to see that they're experts to do their job. So it's like a long process, but we are now on the roll actually.
And what about the feedback you get from schools and other stakeholders?
At the moment, it's very positive because, as you could observe, our goal is not to push digital in the sense that digital has to be everywhere, but our goal is to, as I said, empower our students and teachers to be active and responsible citizens and workers also, of course.
And we're going to get 2027, all the goals. How far in the strategy are we going to get?
If we succeed in most of the goals, I think that we are on very good track. Some are unreachable already because it takes too much time to do some things, and we have to prioritize the activities. But I'm very optimistic on this.
Thank you very much, Igor. Thank you for your time, and to all of you for this first session. You've already earned your gift, Brian. You're going to earn it after the debate. And now I ask you all, invite you to the lobby. We're going to start 11:15, so we're going to make the break a little bit shorter. But now I invite you to take some coffee and refreshments, and we reconvene in 10 minutes.
No problem. She finished in a way that she knows how dangerous it can be. It can influence on her self-esteem. It can take too much time. It can be addictive. But however, she still cannot go under 1 hour per day in using it. And for me, very very important question is: can we use digital technology as a tool for good, only for good? Because I think we all agree, and I'm very happy that we have so much digital tools to use it today. But what is this? The main stream, the main thought that will help us to use it really for good, or majority for good. Because on the other hand, how much of bad stuff must we swallow to use it for also for good team, also for good. Interesting book for me was Stolen Focus of Johan Hari, and there are many difficult topics in it, also with attention disorder, rapidly changing moods, this searching of big sensory impulses in everyday life. Why? Because digital life is so much more interesting. Lots of quickly dopamine rushes is there, lots of addictive elements, and how can we prevent this, and on the other hand teach children and to be truthful also ourselves, how to use digital technology in a good way, with a focus on the this stuff that we really want to do it with technology. And here I think searching for the balance is something that always is debating about also today. I have a feeling that we all try to see this balance and using really in a good way. And on one hand, we can agree that if we put PDF of lecture on the internet, it wouldn't be really interesting, and it wouldn't be good learning experience for any students. But on the other hand, if we go to the direction of I don't know, social media or video games, and we make materials that will really be gamification great, so that it will be interesting, have lots of different colors, voices, audio effects. What is our purpose? I think it's very important to critical think about also this topic, because it can be quickly to go into the direction of addictive elements that we can find it in other area of digital use among teens, among young people. And I think it's good to talk about and to think critically about it. And here I have a question, really I would like to ask you, what attracts children or us digitally most? What are the things that most quickly came into our mind when we take in our hands, I don't know, mobile phone or yeah, smartphone or computer? What are mostly, if you are a teacher, if you watch children or for yourself? Messages? Yeah, connecting with other? Okay, some other stuff. Thank you. Information. Like news or something? Okay, great. Thanks. Some other thoughts about it? Yeah? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, please. Mm-hmm. FOMO effect, yeah? Yeah, we all know probably fear of missing out is something of most addictive thing in internet. And I think it's so deeply connected with our identity of being human, because we are social animal, and normally we don't want to miss out, to be lonely. And this FOMO effect is something among, in my opinion, most addictive thing. Thank you very much. Yeah. Some other thoughts about TikTok? Yeah. Why? Mhm. Yeah. Totally true. TikTok in Slovenia is among teens the fastest growing social media in last years. Yeah, uh, definitely. And interesting, TikTok is only on video implemented. It doesn't have messages like old ways, like in our days when we were young. Right. So many things are, and many things also can be uh, more we can talk about that attract us digitally. Uh, what do you think if you listen, if you think on teens, what would be the most engaging or the most time challenging stuff for them in digital world? Social media, okay, I agree. Yeah, some other stuff. It is interesting research that was made last year. Sorry, video games. Yeah, the research last year present that um, young people from 13 to 18 years old, they are normally they are in a average. They are 8.5 hours per day among screens, and when they were checking differences between the sex, it was difference 1 hour. Uh, who do you think took more time, boys or girls? Boys, girls. Who's for boys? Please raise your hand. 10. Who's for girls? Majority. No, you're wrong. Boys. Almost 1 hour more. Boys were over 9 hours in average, and girls little bit more than 8 hours. And the video games, you said, was the something that in the end they explain with video games, because today video games are one of the biggest industry in the net. And what is interesting for me is when we are talking about video games, sometimes we think, yeah, children are playing it, yeah. This graph is for me interesting. If you see, among all the players on the net, 20% are children or underage teens. All other part, 80%, are players yeah, of us or older also. But it is true that here it's not mentioned how much time players spend with video games. So it's not presenting all of the truth behind it. But some of it can also be interesting for us. And when I'm thinking about it, also my 7 years old son, he likes to play chess. But the best thing for him to play is chess.com. It's the easiest, it's the application. He can find the real adversaries who are in the same level as he. And it's also challenging how to manage to use it just properly, not too much, but still so he can learn and use it in a proper way. Video games, by the way, fun fact, last year video games approximate worthy was something around the BDP of Norway or Austria. So it's more than 4 times than film industry and music industry combined together worthy. It's really huge. And this expansion was all all made in last 6 years. Because if I'm remembering video games, I would love to play when I was a child. It was like Prince of Persia or Tetris or something like that, and we didn't pay more or less anything. Interesting is that big part of this money today comes from the topic of skin. Do you know what are skins? Yeah, some of you, yeah. For those of you who don't, skin means how you look in the game. It can be also implemented with different powers in the game, but not necessary. And 3 weeks ago, we have a workshop in one primary school, and one boy, 12 years old, explained that he used, I don't know how, but 300 euros for one skin in a game that wasn't connected with any power or power up or something like that. And it is, I think it is important to know because um, it's very in everyday lives of children, of teens, on the one hand, and on the other hand, it's important to think about what can tell us about self-esteem and what can tell us about digital and real world for children today. On the other hand, you said that social media is one of the, and I agree, one of the important part of digital environment for children. And we can see to the extension the problematic in the field of sexting, in the field of cyberbullying. That's very common, unfortunately, today in different ways. And the third topic that I would like to address here is topic that we don't talk a lot about it. We have official prevention of getting to contact with pornography for the children under the age of 15 years old, but mostly we don't do very much that they could not come into contact of pornography. It's interesting for me when the Ukraine-Russian war started, soon it was banned the Russian official media in Europe. And it was hard to get to listen to them. But in the field of how hard it's today for the children who is 13 years old to come to the really hardcore pornography, without problem, more or less. It depends if the parents have some filters or blockers do, okay, then. But still, in that field, however, we say it's not good for them, but as a society or as adults who are responsible for them, we don't do really much in that field, I think. So, for the end, I would like just to encourage us that we are imperfected in using of digital technology. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't use it, just that we should ask ourselves how we use it and what are the consequences about it. On the other hand, I feel very strongly that we can go in the right direction with cooperation among us and with questions, so that we put questions, we answer, we give questions to children, to teens, and also listen to them, and also our experience. And with this, we can make stronger bonds and safe environment. And the last topic is hope. Definitely, all of us and also children will get some wounds in that field, but we can also make better world with it, and with the conversation and with the searching of the right direction, I believe that tomorrow can be better also with digital technology, and we can looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you very much. And now I'll invite to the floor Andy Absgotspon. Is it right?
Yes.
Yeah, approximately right. So when he's not flying his helicopters or playing football out in the Swiss mountains, he's also the founder and CEO of Hazu, which is a very innovative startup. Got the merchandise here, yeah. And we invited him because he's actually someone from the field, someone developing these tools that can be used for a very purposeful, in a useful way. And Andy, the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for this great opportunity and also my first time being in this beautiful country. So I'm from Switzerland, which in itself is already a really nice place. But yeah, we always love to explore and also see other countries. And that's, for me, a great opportunity to speak to you guys. And as we've heard already yesterday and today, there's a lot of different angles and perspectives that come together. And my original topic for this talk was the surprising risk of AI in education. So most people spoke a lot about risks and challenges with AI, but I want to maybe highlight one of the risks that are not talked about so much. And after listening to Dr. Brian O'Neill today, and also having spent some time with him yesterday and in between, I tried to maybe take his key to the compass or the lens of the Catholic angle or the Catholic viewpoint, and how can we make sure that this is still safe and future-proof. And we are a startup, as introduced, and I think we have a few solutions, maybe also a few more questions. Those of you who want to also follow along with these slides or these Hazus, I created a very special QR code. So if you want to have a look at that, please have a scan. It's the first time I'm using this tool. It's called quickqr.art. So you can make your own QR codes. I just typed in Catholic Church QR code, beautiful colors, and and then this came out. So I'm from the Swiss mountains, and as Marco mentioned, I founded Hazu, and the idea with Hazu is that we really want to try to blend together the digital and the analog world, but instead of doing this with very old, so to speak, principles like pieces of paper and files and folders, we wanted to make this a little bit more colorful, a little bit more visual, but also a little bit more as the brain works. So our brain works a lot more evolutionary speaking, with colors, with symbols, with hierarchies, with distances, and that's something that that isn't really so much represented in a lot of the digital world, which is often still kind of revolving around old principles. Or last time maybe you were in Word and you clicked on this little floppy disk icon, and then maybe a child was asking, so what is this floppy disk icon? And yeah, most of us have probably not held a floppy disk in our hands for a long, long time. And kids probably will, if you show them an actual floppy disk, they will say like, oh, cool, you 3D printed the save icon from Word. So that's pretty much their association. I'm from very close to where Daniel is. So Daniel, the headmaster here of the music school, who invited me. I'm only a stone throw away from where he grew up. And but I spent a lot of time in the UK and also in Silicon Valley, where I founded Hazu, before then traveling back to Switzerland, where I currently live. Our solution is, it's a digital platform. I will show you in a second. And it's used in schools, public and private schools, all the way from K through 12, all the way from Switzerland to Silicon Valley, and also at other age groups, and for example, also vocational schools as well. So it's really something that across the different education levels we are involved, which gives us a great insight. Mostly people always say, yeah, but this is very special in our country or in our age group or in our school. and we see a lot of patterns where a lot of people have the same fears, but maybe also could use the potential same solutions across the board. Even the Swiss government uses this for international conferences. So even though we're in between startup and scale-up phase, we have over 100 clients, and it's already quite established. Therefore, we're still looking into growing this. But really think that we're onto a great start here with a really good solution. So first of all, I just wanted to show you this graphic here. There is kind of these two worlds. So there's the one world with the tame problems, so very simple problems, situation, solution, and it's a very clear path. And then there's this depiction of the wicked problem world where situations are much more complex. We need a lot of different ways to a lot of different solutions. Who of you thinks that we're predominantly today in a world of tame problems? Okay, no one. Okay, I always do this test. Okay, who thinks we're predominantly in a world of wicked problems? Yes. And this kind of shows that even though maybe nothing else would have changed, right? This is something that probably in the world in the last, decade, but also 40, 50, or 100 years, this complexity has grown. Who thinks that which one do you think was the education system, the current one? Which one did it prepare us for? Did it? Okay, I think that's almost a rhetorical question. And I wanted to symbolize that it's not one or the other, right? So the current school system where we probably learn a lot more about the basic knowledge and linear solution paths, it's still needed, right? And you could maybe draw this metaphor of it's a little bit like the backpack and the rucksack of books or of information that we carry with us. It's still useful knowledge, right? But we also need other instruments and other tools like this compass, right? That helps us navigate this difficult forest or this wicked, difficult world. And these future skills, mostly referred to as the 4 C's, like critical thinking, creativity, communication, and collaboration, those are additional soft skills or future skills that help us navigate that. So both of them are possible, right? Because you need some of the basics in order to get around, but you might also need creativity to find new ways, or collaboration to work with other people, or communication to express what you want to do, either to an AI or, of course, to other humans. And I think that should hopefully put an end to the old discussion whether it's one or the other. I think it's probably both, but if we combine it well, we would all win. And so this sort of change in the world, this leads us to 3 very concrete problems, right? And one of it is that our current tools or our current digital world is mostly created based off of very antiquated old concepts. So we still understand the digital transformation or the digital world very often as simply a substitution or a slight augmentation of what we had in the analog world. So we still use files and folders and PDFs and metaphors like the inbox in order to send somebody an email, which is an electronic email, into an inbox. So all of these are post office concepts that don't really make so much sense. And if we really want to leverage all of that power, we probably need to think about new ways of structuring content. The second big problem is that we fall into a big trap with AI very often, that if we use the traditional way of frontal teaching, so basically one person just talking about a topic and nobody really being engaged or not really seeing a relevance, that a lot of that is already forgotten after a very, very short time. So we barely remember anything after a span of a week, or even worse, after a month. And the problem is now, according to a Stanford professor, if we use AI now to only scale this model, right, we will create speeches and presentations and basically text or whatever it is we want to create. We will create it faster, but the outcome at the end is not going to benefit the learners or anybody, right? So we will basically be a little bit faster in me creating this presentation, but if you at the end of the day don't memorize or have learned more after 31 days, what does AI really help us with, right? And that would be the biggest risk according to him, that we basically fall into this trap because it's very tempting, right, to use AI purely for that. And then the third is that, according to a NASA study, basically creativity, and we talked about that yesterday a lot, and the bishop talked about it as well, creativity is almost systematically unlearned, right? So throughout our school life, and there's a nice NASA study about that, we almost unlearn all of the creativity that we had when we were young children. And those are kind of things that, and that's only one of these 4 very important future skills, right? That kind of the current system really doesn't make it so easy to maintain. So let's just maybe draw a perfect world, or a world where we might have a solution for some of this, right? So how about, instead of a world that is based off of these old patterns, we use something that's more brain friendly, that's more visual, a little bit like Lego, but in the digital world. And that's unified, so we use the same principle for everything and not 100 different tools. And how about we use the power of AI not to scale just the creation of old formats, but we use it to actually give us context, to establish feedback loops, or to allow personal experiences. And how about, as a third, we use feedback loops and visualization of these skills and these topics in order to have ongoing learning reflection. And therefore, as one of my favorite golf coaches once said, no feedback, no learning, right? So you can make the same mistake a million times. If you don't have a feedback loop, somebody telling you or you finding out yourself, you're just not going to get better. And that's what we're trying to address with Hazu, right? By having a visual platform that's a little bit like the Swiss Army knife of the digital world, or a little bit like the smartphone. So before the smartphone, we had a backpack with a lot of devices. And then we have now one device that for most people, most of the times, is pretty much all we need. So having a visual platform like that, and then using what we call Hazu Genius, which is something that leverages the most powerful large language models and other generative AI technologies to blend into that visual world. And then as a third Hazu skills, putting those things that we have created back into a feedback loop where I can see with which values or with which competencies of the framework of the OECD and other places does my learning correspond, and where could I potentially improve my learning, and then get suggestions from the AI for that. So putting the learner in the center rather than being the passenger of that sort of learning plane. And so I want to show you a few live demos. And inspired yesterday already, while the bishop was already talking, I felt a bit rude, but I wanted to already, jot it down before I forget. I had this idea when they were talking about aligning things with a Catholic mentality or through a Catholic view, right? How could we use something like Hazu Genius, or similarly ChatGPT and other AI systems, to basically enter a certain dialogue, but also to create content and maybe new forms of learning. And so one of the things that I tried was to use this and to maybe explain the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, but through a Catholic lens, maybe with Bible quotes and so. And so I want to give a live demo now, and let's see if this works. And this would then create some content for me, but it would actually put that into this nice visual Hazu structure that you saw before, that looks more visual rather than just text coming out. So I'm going to dictate and see if that works. Create a list of sustainable development goals, comma, the first 4 of them, comma, viewed through a Catholic lens, full stop. Use the official colors and icons, comma, and as content use proverbs, Bible quotes, and anecdotes from the Catholic teachings, full stop. This should be for a student, in Slovenia at a Catholic school. All right. So, and obviously this is now me just stream of mind, just me talking into what I think I would like. Of course, there is iterations, and everybody of you, I would encourage you to just, you know, get your hands dirty and don't be shy when it comes to some of these technologies, right? Just try to get an intuitive understanding in a sense for how these things work, rather than maybe having some fear or some thoughts that might not actually represent reality. And what we see here is, yeah, I already get the first sustainable development goal by the UN, which is called no poverty, right? And so we see that now it has given me this Bible quote of whoever oppresses the poor shows contempt for their maker, but whoever is kind to the needy honors God, right? And it comes from Proverbs. And we see that this has now been represented for the first, I think, 4 that I said. And now this would be something that I, with one click on the platform, I can export and send you, for example, a QR code for that as well. What I can also do is, because I can keep chatting with this, right? I can maybe zoom into one of those sustainable development goals and maybe say, for SDG number 4, comma, create 3 subchapters with additional content, comma, explaining also the relevance of this on a geographic level within Europe, full stop. Use 3 to 4 chapters, subchapters. With geotags. In addition, in the very beginning, add a chapter with a language table that explains the most important vocabulary to me in Slovenian, English, and German, full stop. And this just shows how this could either be a magic tool, right, for a teacher to maybe prepare a topic like the Sustainable Development Goals, but through the lens of, you know, the school and the Catholic values or whatever else we want to feed it, but at the same time also allow a reflection for people on this. So I could have 17 students, and each of them, after my brief introduction, they dive into one topic, right? They basically create this additional sort of layer on top of it, and then we basically gather again and we present, right? So these 4 pillars of what we saw about the different C's with the future skills, right? We would have communication, creativity, critical thinking in terms of I might have to go and maybe research some of these things and cross-check them, right? Whether some of them are true or valid, and I can also ask it to give me sources, right? And so that's basically a way for us to be able to, as you saw here, right? Even the language table, I won't even try to pronounce this, but this would already give me the most important vocabulary for something, and I could blend in language learning seamlessly together with something that otherwise would have been very, very difficult for me to do. I just want to show you how this looks if I would export this content, right? So I can export this, and so the beauty here is it doesn't just end here in the chat window and now I maybe have to copy it and put it into another program to share. I can click one button, and now just the same way I have sent you guys a QR code, I could send you this QR code here, and you could wait, there's 2 created, right? So I could send you this link, and now in Hazu you can explore this. You could add things like interactions and basically have an engaging discussion about this. And of course also view it in different views, like the presentation view, which is the one I'm using for my presentation here, or of course additional views like the mind map view and so on. So this is sort of this visual way that we saw. Even in terms of, we had this geographic aspect as well, so I can use other views like the geographical view, and this way it would also show me pieces of content, maybe the history of the Catholic Church in different eras throughout that. So that was just one demo. There's a lot more. One that I just briefly, before I run out of time, want to show is a project that we were doing with Daniel, where we were thinking, how could this new approach apply to something like a teaching book, right? And how could we reinvent the teaching book for music? And this is how something like that could look like, where we have basically these different hazus, right? These containers, and we can visually now explore these pieces of content. They can actually be connected. I can open them here. Not only would we have the text, we would also have a place where people can ask questions, like things, engage. And because it's a very simple visual paradigm, it would even work in virtual reality. Right. If I'm not, yeah, losing. And you see, this would be something that it's the same content we saw before, and of course, it allows us to add 3D objects or maybe even move things around and play with them within sort of a 360-degree image that we could, take here with a camera like that. There's lots more examples like that as well, where we can then bring that into that feedback loop. That basically is the part where you could then define the skills that you want, and based off of what you've done or what you have learned, you can put that back. And this is bringing together a lot of the gamification aspects that you were talking about, right? So people see this as a kind of skill tree, or as a kind of reflection of what they've done and what they've learned. And they could then even use the AI or their own imagination to understand, how could I maybe boost this competency that maybe I have neglected so far, or that maybe I'm not so strong with. And that just really gives this powerful, visible feedback loop for people that otherwise kind of goes missing. There's a lot more I could show, but I want to give you a big thank you. And I hope that with that, I showed a little bit how a possible world where learning experiences can integrate ethical values and future skills, but also leverage the digital tools in a creative, communicative, but also sustainable way. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andy. Now I invite you to join the panel here, and I also invite Brian and Benjamin if you take a seat. And the last person to introduce today is Tomasz Waliawec. He's a parent of one of our students and also regional director for Microsoft, and he's going to be moderating this debate between you.
Hello, nice to be here. Thank you, gentlemen. Just before we start, I'll do a bit of an introduction. So take a seat, have a relaxed time. Yeah, it's nice to be here, first of all. Great, I live like a few minutes away, so it was really easy for me to come around. And when I've seen the agenda, I said, wow, I need to be here, and I need to listen to this. It's also for my personal learning. What I do, I work at Microsoft, so I cover more than 100 countries for the platform that is called Azure. By the way, ChatGPT runs on Azure, so every prompt you do on ChatGPT comes to the part that I lead for Africa, Middle East, and Central Europe. And the artificial intelligence is far the most booming part of what's actually developing right now in all aspects. What we've seen is, very surprisingly, customers from very regulated industries, which is the governments, financial institutions, healthcare, are jumping on the train on AI, where we expected that they will be the ones first observing and then following that. Yeah, so maybe just for introduction, maybe, I'm not sure if it was said, but you have those who are here from Slovenia, and you have a sense of a feeling of education system. How much, as a percentage of a total curriculum that we have for the primary school and high school, is touching the information technology as a percentage? Would you say more than 10? More than 50? No? 5? I hear 5, yeah? Less than 5? Anyone else? 0.6%. 0.6. Crazy low. So I love the conference like this one today, because we speak about the technology and the technology implication in education, because that is a big force that this country needs to accelerate big time. And I hope with this talk today we're going to be going in that direction. from technology perspective, we've seen an acceleration. Maybe some of you have heard about Moore's law. Moore's law said that the power of transistors has duplicated every 18 months. So the power of CPU of your computer is stronger, has double the power every 18 months. That has been some kind of fading out. That has been the development for years, but has some kind of, we were unable with the technology advancement to do so until the so-called GPUs arrived. GPUs are the core of the AI. With the AI, so with the GPUs, we see the 10x acceleration every year for the last 10 years. So imagine the power that technology is right now accelerating, and we have it. So we have a tool, but we are still dealing with the most stupid AI models that you're going to ever deal with. Yeah? Those are the stupidest that we have. So if you, those of you who still, being at the beginning of the mobile phones, I still remember my first Ericsson. It was like, no brainer, just, SMS was the best thing to have, nothing else. So we are at that level with the AI models. But it's not for me today to give a presentation. It's not for me to speak. So it's great to be and to welcome the speakers that you already know because they were presenting to you today. So I'll join them here and I'll invite them to talk about different topics of what has been said. But I'll start, if I may. Andy, you've mentioned soft skills. You mentioned 4C. Yeah. So we've seen the artificial intelligence, so I'll give this intro as well. Artificial intelligence, when it was now generative AI, has surprised everyone. We've never thought AI will be creative. How many of you have used AI to write a poem? Yeah? It is creative. We've never thought AI will be empathic. You can prompt and say, hey, be empathic and so on, and you get the answers back. So you've mentioned key soft skills 4Cs, which has creativity inside of it. Can you elaborate on that? Because AI is already creative. How can we use this smartly, and what else is potentially needed on it? And by the way, that was off the script. So the guys, we interacted, but I came up with this question when you were. Hope I'm not surprising you too much.
No, that's all good. We have matching outfits with the white shoes and the blue, so we didn't also talk about that. So that's pure coincidence. Yes, thanks so much. It's a great question. I think one of the first laws of AI. I studied that in the UK before it was cool. I'm a little bit of an AI hipster. I always say I studied this a dozen years ago before it was cool. And one of the first things that you learn there is garbage in equals garbage out. So when people use this to simply use it on data that is not structured or on ideas that are not very creative, you won't really get a great result. And I see this a lot when we do these workshops with schools. We often ask the teachers, right, what is a great idea you could put into an image generator like DALL-E 2 or something like that? And then you see that the teachers, they struggle greatly coming up with an idea. They just type in a frog or something really generic. And then they're surprised that the images, they're not really that creative. So it amplifies what you put in. And then the kids, they go and they say, yeah, it's a frog wearing a space suit in a space nebula, while at the same time there are planets made of cheese. And that comes out and it looks amazing, right? And I think it's understanding that a fool with a tool is still a fool. So all of those tools and all of those technologies, they amplify what we have. And if we use this in order to get into a positive loop, and once you use this, you get addicted in a good way, that you get even more creative, and one idea leads to the other, then I think we're onto something good. But I think kick-starting or jump-starting that, and giving even older people, like sometimes we have teachers, they start off not having maybe a great idea, by giving them a little bit more time to explore that, they are leaving the room with a big, big smile, and they see, hey, I've just discovered something that is magic, even though I might be slower at it than maybe the kids, right? So they realize we shouldn't stop them just because we haven't understood everything yet. We all have questions. I have a lot of questions too and doubts, but use that in a positive way to approach it, find your own limits, and then let's explore together, because that's what creativity and collaboration and all of that would mean.
Super. Brian or Benjamin, you want to comment on something? Just, let's go into it, because I want to have an interacting conversation.
Yeah, no, great. I'd love to jump in on this, because I'm still reeling actually from the Hazard demonstration. I've seen the future, and it's coming alive in 3D. It's truly amazing. But I absolutely support that creativity points to something really important for us all to focus on. And going back to many of the discussions we've had around the human-centered dimension of this, our relationship with technology is a long evolving one, and it will never stop now. Technology continues to evolve, and we will have a relationship with it. But it isn't human, and it's not going to be human, and that's not within its remit. And where is the human interlocutor in this? And that's something which comes back to me as a media teacher. One of our core concepts is about meaning and signification. That is it's a human construct. It's something that we bring into this, and it reflects a lot in terms of teachers of creativity seek to bring out the voice of the learner, and that's something that perhaps it helps us rethink what our relationships are to the variety of tools that we can do, and what helps us to inform that process of identity and who we are and who we're seeking to communicate with. And that's something that I found in my engagements with AI. It's a fantastic tool as a researcher, and I have these tools which help me correct my writing and so on, but they make me say things that I would never say in my own voice. And it really misses out on that dimension, and I put that down to the human dimensions.
Super. Thanks, Professor Brian. And since you're talking, maybe you gave me a good segue to another question. It was discussed today, our attention span. How many seconds we have the attention span. There is a research which says we have and our kids have 8 seconds attention span. 8 seconds. Yeah. Goldfish has a memory of 9 seconds. Yeah? So, with the disruption of digital technologies, causing, actually they brought us to this because we are reading short messages. What do we need to change? What do we need to do differently to increase that? How can kids, teachers evolve to change that?
It's a big challenge, and I haven't been in a classroom for a couple of years, I must confess. So the reality of engaging with young minds and the younger. I watch my 7-year-old granddaughter and her evolution through interfacing with tools and devices and so on. And yeah, for sure I have concerns around that. But it's very much about it's the environment with which we engage with technology, and it comes in multiple kinds of interfaces. And sometimes we do have to slow things down, and we also have to find different ways of presenting that information. I'm quite excited about VR and immersive technologies because screens are not great at holding attention. And TikTok has certainly found a certain magic sauce because you endlessly scroll because of this attention span issue. But that's not intrinsic to the technology itself. And there are different ways, there are different kinds of interfaces, which I think we can do that better. And that's pedagogical. And that comes down to what we're trying to achieve and encourage different kinds of experiences. So let's not always think that it's just the smartphone, it's just the smart device, and that necessarily we have to keep scrolling because there's not enough there to hold our attention for too long.
Could we gamify our education system, our content, what we are reading or the kids are reading in the same manner as TikTok?
Well, Andy really brought this up nicely. Gamification, is really quite something. And Ben, you spoke about it in particular in terms of, attention spans when young people can spend hours at end, in gamified worlds. and pursuing pathways of discovery and learning their way and navigating these kinds of situations. It offers huge potential. One thing as an educator I find, gamification, given the scale and the sophistication of the industry, it's hard. It's extremely hard. It's labor intensive, and the quality of production that needs to go in to be an effective, convincing performance is difficult. And the issue there is in terms of equity of access. We want true quality of access for all children, and that may be difficult to achieve in the educational environment itself.
I have a short addition to that. There's 2 points. One is the goldfish. So there is a researcher in Germany. Her name is Yvonne Behnke, for those of you who want to follow her on LinkedIn. And she's actually researching learning myths, right? And she actually says that that whole attention span, it's a little bit oversimplified. So there was a study in 2015 that was talking about that attention span, but she says that it's usually wrongly interpreted. And she says that attention span, scientifically speaking, with all these measures, it's greatly variable, right? So you've all seen kids play with something and you can't take them away for hours. They're locked in, right? And that completely proves, right, that it's completely context dependent. And the same thing is true with gamification, right? So the same content in a different form itself has no real measurable impact on learning. So there's studies where you do a very similar content in VR versus maybe in printed form or an iPad. And if there is no relevance and the kid doesn't at that moment see maybe the sense or have an intrinsic motivation, the learning impact on using VR for it is maybe a little bit higher in the beginning because the novelty factor, but that wears off very quickly. And that just goes to show that even the production quality of our videos doesn't really matter. So there's 300 billion a year spent on learning and development teaching videos, right? That are basically corporate learning videos. People create these highly qualitative videos, and at the end people do a quiz. And they see that only 3% of those in these MOOCs, for example, and Coursera, only 3% are completed in the course. And only 12% of employees mention that they've gained any impact at all by watching these 300 billion produced or worth produced videos. So that kind of goes to show that it's the learning design, the relevance, and that's lacking, and not making all of that now in VR, right? Even though that's something I'm really passionate about as somebody from the film industry. I love all that stuff, but I would be dishonest to tell you that that's the sole solution.
Super. Thanks for the very interesting insights. Benjamin, you want to add to this one, or I have a question?
And just got the idea that if any of us would like to do something really deeply, being focused, normally we can think that there are at least 3 different types of solution that we need to address before. And you mentioned already, it has to be meaningful for us or for children. If it's one game for him, it's really important. He can be much more involved in it, and it's similar with learning material. This is the first. The second is there shouldn't be too many obstacles from the environment, and here digital environment can be dangerous. From example of every notification that we've got, or every addressing something, noise, colors, different applications. And the third, it has a little bit harder than it was the last time that he made with a game or with something. So not just on the same level, because it came really quickly to be bored. And I think these 3 types can also help us, these 3 thoughts can also help us with evolving learning materials that can be in the direction of take the focus on something good. But however, we need to address, because be honest, it's our fault that if the direction of learning goes not good for the children, we are the responsible ones for them. And we can take this into account and use it to produce something good from it.
Thank you. So I'll just slightly switch the topic. The technology is evolving, and it's hard to follow it for all of us, including for me working for a technology company. There has been, like I said, technology, from the technical standpoint, there is a 10x acceleration every year in terms of the computing power. There was one particular factor that helped us all to get into the train much faster than we wanted. Anyone had a clue, and it was not a technological factor. It was something else that put us to get into the understanding technology and start using it much more than we've ever had before. COVID. Yeah. So it's actually not a technology. We've proven that to ourselves. How do you three gentlemen stay, the train has left the station. It's running, it's driving quite fast right now. The AI comes on top of it, which just gives additional acceleration. How do you three on every day and for your practice that you do, how do you stay up to date? How do you personally learn to stay relevant for what you do every day?
In my opinion, one of the topics that I addressed before is imperfection. As a human being, we cannot be up to date every day to all of information that comes. But it's important that I think that we love to learn, that we try to changing, evolving, and as a matter of fact, as we were talking in the break before, in our jobs, the things were quite different 6 years ago than are today. And in the jobs of the tomorrow, of the 10 years, definitely there will be a lot of different stuff to work that today we don't know what it will be. But this is not something that we should fear, I think. Just that we, as you addressed before, Andy, that we don't be afraid of changing, of learning, of putting creativity, new perspective in it.
Can I ask a very precise question? How do you personally get updated? What do you learn? What do you read? What do you listen? What do you practice?
For example, in my opinion, I love podcasts. And during the driving with the car, quite lots of time I prepare beforehand, and I listen to something that really engage with what's important for my work. This is one point for me that's good, and the other is I love to interact with people, and I'm preparing quite a lot of meetings with them and listening to areas that are experts they in it.
Yeah, it's a great question, and this is a perennial struggle. Sometimes I just give up the ghost and I say, look, it's just going to all wash over me. But I've been following this area for such a long time, and as I was mentioning earlier, the various ways, there's a responsibility on research in this field to really inform. People in policy positions, administrators, leaders, and whatnot, and the network of safer internet centres. Igor was mentioning that as well. They're really important because they listen to young people. And hearing the voice, and so I learn from others, and I try and keep in touch that way.
The short answer is YouTube, LinkedIn, and a lot of these primary resources, I would say. So I'm just throwing out a few names and channels for those of you who are interested. LinkedIn, for example, there's a bunch of people like Yvonne Behnke that I mentioned. She's researching learning myths. So she always applies technology into what that means for learning. Another great one is Philippa Hartman and also Dan Schwartz. And there's a bunch of others that are basically great resources on LinkedIn that basically, that's kind of the fastest flow of, okay, if something pops up from usually people that are ahead of the curve by a few weeks or months. Then on YouTube, there is a wonderful channel called 2-Minute Papers, where you get in a very short, video of, it's not 2 minutes, usually it's 5 to 10 minutes, but they show the most exciting research papers from Microsoft, from Meta, from NVIDIA, from Google, where you can kind of see what's coming up. And then podcasts on YouTube. So there is Lex Friedman and a lot of these long form podcasts where I basically just listen to 2 hours conversation with Elon Musk, with Sam Altman, with Jan LeCun from Meta. And by listening to a lot of that, you basically get the primary sources. The other one is just because I'm actively developing with all of these APIs, right? I get all the newsletters from OpenAI, I get it from Anthropic, I get it from Azure, I get it from Google Cloud, I get it from Gemini. And the moment a new model comes out, you saw in Genius, we support a bunch of different models. I add it, so I know exactly what the models are, and a day after it's introduced, I already know which work in the content or the context for us and which don't. And I can sort of bring this together with our clients then to understand in application what works and what doesn't, which is kind of my lucky, unique position where if I only read about them, I couldn't really get an intuitive sense for it. And I think that's, yeah, I'm just trying to funnel it a little bit so other people can mostly have it abstracted in something like Hazu, where optimally in Genius, they don't have to worry about what model is in the background. It just works for them because, yeah, nobody can follow everything, me included.
Super. Thanks for all your insights. I hope you've taken it down. Some of them were fantastic. CEO of NVIDIA. NVIDIA is currently, the company who produces the GPUs, said that we've been looking for years in the business for the people who knows how to program, so technical people. There was a shortage of those skills and people available on the market. Now they said with the generative AI, everyone can become a programmer. So we wouldn't need the programmers that much as we still need them, don't get me wrong. But what is so that was just one example, but what do you believe, and I'll close with this question then, what do we need to prepare the kids today to be ready for the job market? Because we are here in education space. We're going to be successful when our kids will be successful entering the job market. So what do you think we need to, and I think you mentioned very well, you said that the jobs will change. 62% of the jobs that are existing today will not exist in a few years, or will be new ones. What do you think we need to emphasize today to get them ready?
I'll again just jump in if that's okay. I'm really quite optimistic about this because I think the values of classical education remain as relevant as ever. Because I think, and in my university role, we engage with lots of employers about what they're looking for, what are the skills and whatnot, and said no, it's not the technical handbooks, it's not that because they're going to be obsolete next year anyway. It's the ability to learn. It's the ability to stay with it, to always have that sense of curiosity. To continue in terms of being able to equip oneself, being confident as learners, and all of those come through diverse traditions and bodies of knowledge. As I spoke about earlier, the purpose of education are these high-level goals, but they're not specific to a particular a piece of knowledge, which is going to change and change rapidly. As to whether AI will do all the programming, we've already had a discussion about that, and whether it is whether it still needs the critical input because it can program poorly just as well.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I believe that it's the same as before said Andy. If we prepare children to become more smarter, to learn more, also the output from the work with AI or the digital technology will be better. And this is, I think, one of the biggest challenges for us. Because it's also, we know that if we give children at the age of 6 smartphone without any restriction, it would, at the age of 12, he will use it in a much false, in a much not good, worse way than the other children who will be without the smartphone at the age of 12. Because we know how this interacts in our, in his mind, in his brain, and it's our responsibility to prepare them to learn, to like to learn, to be smarter, and also to use technology for in a smarter way. It's not that they should be afraid or we should be afraid. It's just that we get to know, to use the knowledge that we know, how our brain, how we as a human being works, and how can we use it, technology, as a very powerful tool for the jobs that we don't know what will be in tomorrow's world.
Yeah, maybe we got the whole thinking backwards, right? We normally teach the tools and we don't teach to the actual problem. So we usually learn about what is a wrench and what is a screwdriver instead of basically having the wish to maybe understand how does this engine work, or how does a car work, or seeing somebody with a go-kart and saying, I'm going to build my own, right? And we had the same discussion this morning, right, with Stephen, about programming. So do you actually then go and explain all of the basics of all of the variables and the if statements, or do you let people say, hey, this is maybe what I want to create, and on that journey, I know that, oh, I need to know what a key listener is, so when I press the left-hand button, my Space Invader moves around, right? So I learn as I go, and this way the relevance and the motivation is already given. And I think that has two important benefits. Both, the first is we always have relevance along the way, but the second is we have to first ask ourselves what is it we want to do, right? If we don't have the interest to disassemble the engine or have a go-kart or build a chicken house or whatever your passion is, or understand how a beautiful machine like this or instrument works, then everything is lost. And the same is true after when we go to the workforce. If we don't get a why do I do this? What's my purpose? Or what is it I want to do on a very high level, then everything else kind of falls into, basically falls apart. And I think it's these two things that help us reverse it by having our own journeys, but they're always driven by relevance. And that's what works. We see how these devices work because they connect relevance. These algorithms are made to understand what is it you're looking at, what is it you like, and they fill you with content that's relevant for you. That's why they're addictive. Why can't we try to fill relevance driven by something they're interested in and then attach the learning on the side, right? And that would be a dream that also creates a workforce that is prepared to navigate that world while at the same time having a rucksack which is not too heavy and breaks their back before they get moving.
Super. So we're wrapping up, and if I'm not mistaken, we're standing between the lunch. Is just any question from the audience that we still address? Yeah. All right. All right. preferred candidates to answer. By the way, anyone. By the way, Africa is mobile first continent. Yeah, Africa has skipped the PC stuff, and they are, pretty much, they have lots of mobile phones, much more than we could imagine.
Yeah.
But anyone?
I would have answered along the same lines, that it's not always linear, right? You don't always have to go through every stage. You remember that graphic I had there with this exponential curve of the 4 stages of the digital transformation? So from substitution, where we just substitute a piece of paper with a piece of paper in the computer, to augmentation, to modification, where digital transformation changes the whole process, to redefinition, where we think about it from scratch, right? You can go directly from having no devices at all, and even no paper and no printers, and no, as you said, no landlines, go directly to mobile or to smart voice assistants that might at the same time maybe require some mobile network, but that's what they kind of have, or that's what even with Starlink now, we even get in remote places, that this can be a great booster, right, for accessibility and access to these technologies. But the questions you asked, they're still relevant to establish that relevance in that place and understand what is it they're motivated to do, what is it important for them, and basically, again, not making the mistake that we can maybe reuse the same content or the same models that works everywhere. I mean, make that part of the journey of exploration, and then I think those people there, they're highly inventive, right? I'm at a lot of international conferences as well with the Swiss government, and I'm always impressed by what projects come out of these countries where people just find incredible solutions to problems, right? And giving them those basic tools like the Swiss Army knife or whatever it is, or ChatGPT and these models, we don't even need to give them a million courses on how to use them now, right? Just give them the basics, and they will be smart enough as well then.
Just very quick thought on this, and thank you for raising it. Absolutely, context is everything, and I fully agree with Andy that it's not linear. There's no single model into the future around this. But one of the great lessons from COVID, was that context and the human interaction, wherever that takes place, is really intrinsic to the educational experience. Technology builds up around that. But the other point, in terms of looking to learning in Africa and the global south more generally, we have to be aware that the digital world is highly unequal, and there are enormous gaps and challenges to overcome in terms of digital divides, which I fear are actually ever widening. We like to believe that technology is addressing many of these issues, but in fact, as it evolves, the gaps are also there.
Super. I think I've heard some stomach voices meanwhile. So I want to be on the safe side, not to be thrown out. I have another 15 questions, but those were actually prepared for Dr. Igor, who, when he saw it, he decided to change his agenda. Joke aside, gentlemen, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have a talk with you, and I wish everyone have a wonderful lunch. We'll be around for questions. So, Andy, Dr. Brian, Benjamin, thank you very much.
So I have the bags for all our guests, okay? And after that, I would like to invite you all to the lunch. Monica, Patricia, and Petra are waiting in the hall, and they will escort you to the lunch. So have a good lunch, and then see you at the workshops as is in the schedule, okay? Thank you.